We know that a big source of stress and anxiety in our kids today is their constant connection to their phones and their devices. But what if there were a solution that they could be completely removed from those distractions and have an opportunity to tune in with who they really are and also have social interactions that are more deep and meaningful? Today, I'm talking with Scott Rinehart, who has created the space that teens need from their phones and devices through his wilderness backpacking trips. He has been changing lives for decades, and I can't wait for you to join us. I'm Norma Flood, and I'm an integrative and functional nutritionist. Welcome to Go With Your Gut. Hello, Scott.
Hello.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you today. So grateful for you to be here. I know I want to dig deep into how that you've led so many young kids, teens into the wilderness, but also want to share that you've been an elementary school teacher for nearly 30 years already.
Yeah.
So would love to hear about some of that first, really what you do in your career before we dive into this backpacking adventure.
All right. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Teaching was really my secondary option because I wanted to have my summers off to backpack. And doing the backpacking as a child really helped me with my interpersonal skills with human beings, which in turn has made me a a successful teacher, I guess I would like to say. I love what I do. I feel very fortunate that I get to go to school every day. It's a joy for me to do that. And my biggest goal every year is to make a connection with each and every student so that they want to come to school, they want to come into class. And if I can get a young person to feel excited about coming into school, whether it's because I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt or whatever it is, it makes the teaching side easier. And that's really, I feel, has always been my strong suit. I think anybody can teach per se, share knowledge about something, but if a student feels that the person in the front of the room truly cares about them, the learning comes more naturally and easier. And that has been my hope and my feeling for every classroom, every student, and the same on the backpack.
For 30 years.
What's that?
Yes, for 30 years. I mean, you're maintaining, you think you'd be burned out by 30 years, right? But just to keep that level of optimism and engagement with each kid. And how many kids are in your classroom now?
About 30.
Yeah,
We've had up to 36, which is trying. We've had as low as 28, which just seems like a joy. You wouldn't think 2 kids to 30 would make that big of a difference, but it really does. It would be nice to have a lower class size. The connections are just amazing when you have fewer bodies.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'd love to even go back, as you said, like backpacking was something that started at an early age and really helped you socially. And I can totally relate to that. So how did that start out for you? What age were you getting outdoors?
I was 11 years old. I mean, I'd done camping, with my family, like car camping, things like that. But the true backpacking started in 6th grade with Eddie Lindros, who started the program. He was my math teacher. and I love school so much. And, and back in those days, summer was 90 days. And for me, it was awful long. I mean, I enjoyed the summers as a kid, but I just couldn't wait to get back to school every year. Um, and so
Which is unusual.
I think so. Yeah. Like I still
Yeah,
enjoy going to school. I never say I'm going to
right.
work. I'm going to school. And so when I met this teacher, he went by his first name in the classroom, which, right away was a hook for me. And then he
Mhm.
was spending time with students in the summer. I was in. I honestly had no idea what backpacking was. I figured it was camping. I didn't probably pay as much attention in the meetings that I should have to, you know, really figure out
Learn the
what I
skills.
was doing. Um, and I was pretty miserable that first trip because I don't think we
Oh,
spent as much time preparing for the difficulties. We prepared our meals and planned those things, but I didn't really mentally prepare myself for the walking part of it. Um, the cold water, digging your own holes to go to the bathroom. Uh, so it was a trying experience on my first trip. And at the very end, they asked, did I have if I had a good time? And I said, yeah. And do you think you'll go again? I was like, no, never. But a couple months after the trip ended, all of the real fun stuff, the stars, the gathering around the campfire, that floats to the surface and the hardships kind of sink to the bottom. And fortunately for me, I had Eddie for seventh grade math. And then
talked you into
there
another
was
one.
there was no question. As soon as I walked into his classroom on that first day of school, I knew I was going next summer. And from there, it just really took off. But to get back to your question, in when you go, say, spend the night or a weekend at a friend's house, you may not be your true you. You might be trying to be cool or say things because you're trying to be friends. And, so I don't feel it's as organic, but 2 or 3 days into a backpacking trip, the true you really surfaces. And so you end up with 4 or 5 nights where everyone is just who they are. And that's when the real joy around the campfires, on the trail, sitting around eating lunch, walking around the lake, that's when the real conversations and dreams and desires start to come out. And that's really my favorite part of the trip. And then the last couple nights, it starts to fade away because you start thinking about, whatever it is you're missing from society.
Mostly food,
Whether,
right?
yeah, if it's a milkshake or a hamburger or, mommy or daddy as well. And
Or their phones, unfortunately.
yeah, the phones, I
Um,
think, have been a downfall for young people. And I'm sure we'll get into that. It's changed how we run the program, as a matter of fact. We used to be a 10-day program. It's now 9 days because of a telephone. Kids get back to society. And when I was a kid, we'd get back to society. There would be 50 kids in line at the payphone. And so you would call mom or dad. You'd be excited to hear their voice. You would share a story or two, and then you'd hang up because there was all these kids waiting in line to talk. So you didn't really get an opportunity to really share everything. Now with phones, kids get back, they go right to their phones, they call mom or dad, they hear their voices, and then they just start sobbing because they want to be home. So we used to have this wonderful
right.
last night where all the groups would get together. We'd have this big campfire. We'd cook things in the fire and roast marshmallows and share all the shenanigans that had gone on the previous week. And it was really a, a neat way to hear about everybody's trips. And for when phones really started becoming prevalent, there would be probably 30 kids just bawling their eyes out because they were homesick because they got to tell mom and dad all these things because there was no limit on how long they could be on the phone. And now they just want to be home. And when you're a leader or a director or running this program, you're tired at the end. And so you just want the good stuff. You want to hear all these fun little stories that the kids experience. You
Right.
don't really want to experience 30 kids bawling their
No.
eyes out.
So they do have access to their phones a little bit. There is some
On
Wi-Fi
the
in some
Yes,
pockets of the
the
trail, you
drive
would
the drive
say.
up and the drive home, they have it. And so
Right.
we would spend that last night in the campground, have some breakfast in the morning, and then drive home. Now we get off the trail, we pick up all the groups at the trailheads, and we drive straight home. And
Just drive home.
it's
Wow.
easier on the adults, but at the same time we don't get that interaction at the end as we did. The kids don't know that really, but they just want to be home at that point.
Yeah, and I get that. I even remember that in Girl Scout camp. I was like in third grade, and I was doing fine. Wasn't feeling homesick, got through half of it, and then my aunt visited me because she happened to be in town. And I swear, all of a sudden, I got homesick. And it's like, where's this feeling
Yeah,
coming from? I was doing fine, but now, and I think that kids need this. In fact, parents need it too, right?
agreed.
We need to practice being away from each other for so many reasons. Let's unpack
Yeah.
that. And I know I can be to blame. So much we do for our kids that we don't realize we shouldn't be doing. And I think there's so much independence they learn on these backpacking
Yes.
trips. Making their own food, putting their tent together, packing their packs, and going beyond their limits. I
Yes.
think as parents, we might do think too much for them, or, oh yeah, that might be kind of hard. We shouldn't do that. But it's like, they just feel more empowered. It's not like you're doing something
Right.
dangerous, but just going beyond their limits, really, and doing more things independently actually gives them more a sense of pride. They're more empowered. We don't realize how much we take away from
I
them
I
as
I
parents.
absolutely agree. In the past, we would take a parent as a leader if there was a spot. And we found out pretty quickly that it wasn't good for either. Wasn't good for the parent,
No.
wasn't good for the child. The kid loses their spoon. You just want to save and give them your spoon, and then tomorrow you both don't have a spoon. You know, um, and so if we ever get that parent that is really, a backpacker, really wants to go, we may allow it, but you won't be in the same group as your child, same big group. You would have to go in a totally different group for the benefit of both of you. Um, I don't know where I picked this up, but as a young parent, I knew my job was to put myself out of a job. And if I do my job well, my my kids aren't going to need me. And so I see daily all these parents, they do so much for their kids, and it comes from a place of love, but there's a point where it's not doing the child any favors anymore. Um,
Right.
so it's sad to
Yeah.
see those parents that have a hard time letting that go, because
Right.
your your kids will come back, if you're doing things that potentially they're interested in. They're gonna stick around and come and be around because they want to be with you, not because they need something each and every time.
Every minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even as parents, eventually they are going to be leaving the nest and,
Hopefully.
they need to practice these times to become more independent and feel that confidence in themselves, and for parents to let go some of that anxiety as well. But I do think that's why a lot of kids are less prepared into adulthood when they don't have enough of these
Yeah.
opportunities that were probably more common than like summer camps. And that being said, it's like sports, another thing that even for our family got in the way of even our son doing the backpacking trips was sports in the
Yes.
summer. It's like year
Mhm.
round in Southern
Yeah.
California because the weather's always great. And if you don't do the summer camps, you're not going to keep up with everybody else. And so it's hard to leave the home for 10 days at a pop.
Yeah.
Um, and we ran into that situation where Carson had done a backpacking trip, our son Carson, with
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
specifically, and they hiked all the way from Mammoth to Yosemite, which is probably a little over 50 miles, around
Yeah.
50
Depending
miles,
on,
I
we have a
think it
couple routes.
was.
Yeah. It's about 55 to
Yeah.
65 miles, depending on the route.
Yeah. It might have been the longer. They wanted to take a more scenic route, but I know it was a week. And I do recall how he felt anxiety coming back late for practice because the fall sports start
Hmm.
August
Yeah.
1st. And sure enough, he was kind of singled out on a few things to feel uncomfortable because you came late. And so it's really important for both students and parents to stand up to some of these coaches. Like, we need to be balanced too. It's like, you've got to
Absolutely.
understand this trip is very important. But I'll share on a note with Carson, when he did your backpacking trip, it was good that we didn't know what was going
Yeah.
on because we had no idea, even though we were looking at the weather, Southern California was sunny, we had no idea there were thunderstorms and storms like every day that week. And these boys aren't sleeping in
No.
tents. They're sleeping under a
Yes.
tarp. So, of course, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I knew he should have brought a single tent or, he must be miserable. He's probably getting sick and all these things. Thank God I didn't know
Yeah.
that. And then he comes home and it's like, well, how'd it go? And then we hear all the stories. I'm like, did you do all right? He's like, it was great. It's like, well, and it's just another example of, oh, that must be miserable, but they still had a great time.
Yes.
Um, and unfortunately, through the remainder of high school, he had gotten so involved in the sport that he felt that anxiety, couldn't do the
Yeah.
weeks. But I'll tell you, the first thing that group of boys did that trip with you, after they graduated from high school, they wanted to do that
Yeah.
same hike because they loved it so much. And one of the dads reached out to you and
Mm.
you reminded them of the route, but it just shows the impact it had, and how backpacking still is huge for our family. And I'll share even as quickly as I can. Like, even as a young child, I grew up like a tomboy. I was fishing, I was climbing trees, I was building forts. We lived in the country. And I didn't even realize until elementary school that I had this social anxiety. And I felt like I didn't fit in and really hard for me to talk with others and socialize. And thank goodness I always had yard work to come back to, where I always just felt comfortable in the summertime and after school. But then comes high school and not knowing what being outdoors was doing for me, that's when I turned to the wrong coping tools. And that's what I worry about with kids. It's either their phones or devices. And for me at the time, it was terrible. It was alcohol.
Right.
And that was what helped me calm the anxiety and even into college. And it wasn't until I went on this backpacking trip, I was invited to go backpacking. And this was even after college. And it was like, we were going up to Mineral King, and wouldn't you know, it was the first day that they opened the gates. And I'm like, oh yeah, summer's
Yeah.
starting. It's Memorial Day weekend. Let's go
Right.
backpacking. You know the problem with that. There was so
No.
much snow. So here I am. I'm not an experienced backpacker. I did not have crampons on to handle the snow. I didn't even have poles. And I had this huge pack on, and I am like post holing.
Wow.
I'm traversing these deep rivers, but I had such an amazing time. And I came back, and I tell you, it's like you have this afterglow, like you have this feeling that just lasts for weeks
Yeah.
after. And from there on, I was like, I'm hooked, you know. And we have, like, I've always been into getting the kids outdoors, going on camping trips, going hiking in our area. and backpacking as a family, which we've been so grateful to do these past
Nice.
years. Even as adults, now that they've left the house, their favorite trips are getting back together as a family, going backpacking.
Yeah, I feel fortunate. The same, my kids grew up with, parents that backpacked, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be an enjoyment or a love of theirs. And fortunately, they caught the bug, and I know that they will be backpacking their whole lives as long as they are able to. Um, and without experiencing it, it's really hard to describe what you were saying. Yeah, I love the words you said, the glow, that it's there's just something grounding and centering. And I always tell people that I go to the wilderness to recharge my batteries. That there's, society for me is great. It's got some great things, but every day there's something missing. There's only so much yard work I can do out, in the grove, and you get out of the car driving to Mammoth for the first time every summer. That first breath of air is just this grounding feeling that I get this giddy feeling in my stomach, and I can hardly wait to put the backpack on and be miserable on the trail potentially, depending on where we're going. But at the same time, I relish in that too, like the uphills. I'd much
Yeah.
rather go uphill than downhill now, and work through those emotions of breathing and getting your heart rate at ease. And, I work with a lot of amazing people, and I would say 90% of them or more after a summer, which is now about 60 days long, they're almost complaining that we have to be back, or, well, I can't believe we're back already. And I always have this feeling, I can hardly wait. I can hardly wait to meet my new students and get this rolling again. I just feel electrified after spending my summer in the wilderness
Yeah.
and with young people. They're a big part of that. Their kookiness and the little, you know, conversations that they have and that they bring. That's another thing that I really feel charges me every year as the ground seems to be getting a little farther down there as our
Yeah.
age.
I think, yeah, the point, something that sparked a thought for me in what you were saying is, I think it's not like we don't like our culture completely. It's just that when we're in this culture, we don't recognize how we're constantly being pulled different
Mhm.
directions between, even with kids. Like, let's look at kids. They're pulled to almost like starting to build their college resume from the time they're in
Yeah.
school. We take, school, okay, I got to keep doing this. And how much volunteer hours did I get in? And how are my grades? And even if not that, but my sports, am I getting my training? Am I getting my lifting in? Or, just so much that need, or do they have a part-time job? And us as parents, even having our jobs and cooking and, doing errands around the house, you've always got a to-do
Yes.
list in your
Always.
head. And I feel like, and so in doing so, when you're constantly pulled out of yourself, you tend to hang out in your head. You're always thinking. And so you're never in your
Yeah.
heart. And to me, I call it, our soul or whatever that is, your deepest part of you. And that deepest part of you, they know you. They know what you love. They know what makes you
Mhm.
happy. But a lot of times we're making decisions from here instead of here. So there's the thing about backpacking is you don't have your phone as a distraction. You don't have that to do. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's like you can't get to it. Too bad. There's no social media. you don't have to think about all you have to think about is, oh gosh, I'm hungry right now. When's our next lunch stop? I can't, or, oh, I can't wait to get to that mountaintop, or look at the view and the feelings that even brings about just being out in nature and hearing nature and not hearing a sound. I really think it provides space for us to connect with ourselves. And then I think that fuels our soul, that fuels our desire to step back into life fully from a place of just wanting to help others but from your heart, and being passionate about what you do, and clarity about those things that just aren't working anymore. Right? So sometimes people come back with aha moments. So I don't know your thoughts about that. But I feel like that is what is missing, is that ability to just disconnect from everything so that we can connect with ourselves and nature and just how amazing simple things are out there.
I call it the joy of nothing. There's just those simple things that have to be taken care of every day. And it's just embracing that nothingness that happens out there. And some people have a hard time with that. But to me, that's the refueling. That's the grounding part of it, where it allows me that quiet time to reflect on my previous year. It gives me time to look ahead and, what do I want to accomplish this year? So I do feel I come back after a trip like this, just ultra focused, just ultra ready. And I hope that I get enough days in the wilderness to sustain me for the following summer, to recharge again. And that phone thing keeps hovering back. And you said something, and all four of our kids will tell you getting a phone was the worst thing that ever happened to them. And they all wanted one so badly. And if they could, we have those talks every once. If you could go back and change, one little point in time, they would all go back and get rid of that phone. And I love that answer in them, because that's when their anxiety began. That's when their FOMO began. And it's really sad that we know how chemically dependent the phones create.
The dopamine.
Yes.
Right.
And yet
The
we're still
dopamine hit.
feeding them. We recently asked the fifth graders, we have about 150 at school, who has a phone in here? And I think there's about 3 or 4 kids who did not raise their hand. And it's just like, oh my goodness, there's no need, but how many kids climbed a tree? How many kids, just were rolling around in the grass after school? Not a one. They're doing great things. They're going to gymnastics, they're going to piano, they're going to sports. They're just busy, busy, busy. But as soon as those activities are done, bam,
right on the
that
phone.
phone. And parents too.
Right.
And I feel a lot of kids are growing up, and now as a fifth grade teacher, I'm seeing it more and more. A lot of them don't know right from wrong in social situations because they're no longer engaged in social situations. They're there quietly on their phone. They're out of their parents' hair. They might be doing something and they look up to see, is this okay? Is this not okay? But parents are on their phone. So now the kids aren't getting the cue that, nope, this isn't so good, or this is bad, or whatever. And so I really feel they honestly don't know, because they're just not getting that human interaction and contact enough.
Right. Yeah. And there's where to start with that, right? I mean, even my son, you said how your kids recognize it. My son was talking about how he'll make comments like, you look at a group of people sitting and they're just sitting in a circle, all looking at their phones. And even if they talk to each other, it's almost like they're talking through their phones or about what's on their phone. Yes. And he said, I am in the dining hall on campus, and you try to talk to other people and it's hard to approach people. Everyone's looking down on their phone, or you stand in line, you try, no one's talking to each other. It's all down on their phone. And so it's so habitual that we've trained kids to feel anxious if they're bored, or anxious if you're it's awkward if you're just standing in line. You better look at your phone so you look like you're doing something. Yeah. And so I think you're right. I mean, we have to model it as parents, and definitely I think it's great what some schools are doing in other countries. They're taking phones out of the schools, but I know how that has been approached. But it's the parents that stand up against it, because it's like, what if I need to get a hold of my kid? It's like, well, like the old days, call the office and they'll send a note if there's an emergency. And so it sure would make it easier to get phones out of the schools. And then also guardrails at home. Like if you're at the table, the phones don't come to the table, but parents have to really practice that as well. Like follow those guardrails. When you're in conversation, you're not looking at your phone at the same time. There's just so much even etiquette we could learn around phones. And then vacations without phones. I mean, really, that's what's so great about these teen backpack trips, is to give them that break, and they're doing it with other teens. So because some of this not using their phone is that FOMO, fear of missing out, like anxious, like, well, I have to see my phone because if so-and-so texts me, I have to know, or I have to know what's going on tonight or tomorrow. Or what are they doing at lunchtime? Whereas if everyone was without their phone in certain situations, like your trip, they don't worry about it because everyone else around them doesn't have a phone. And my son truly had that epiphany. Like, it felt good to take a break from his phone. He did it for 2 weeks. And, but he realized so many of my friends are talking about what's on the phones that you can't keep up with the conversations anymore. But he noticed how he focused better. He was more relaxed. So much of anxiety, depression, I think is derived from the phones. A little bit from the food too. We could go into that. Food definitely affects a lot of behavior and mood and all of that. So you have this perfect storm between the phones coming at them and the kind of foods they're eating today, how they processed, affecting their focus, and it's just a lot to clear the crap out.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah. But share with me, I wanted to hear a little bit, if you could. I think it's just so great, your daughter, how she kind of, how you've, well, not just your daughter, but those that participated in this teen backpacking program, how they themselves loved it so much they became leaders on those backpacking trips.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch a young kid that maybe struggled for a summer or two and kept coming back, and through those trials that they may have went through has made them a better, stronger person. And it was through the leadership that they had when they were kids, those leaders that helped them push through those boundaries that they didn't know that they could blast through, and then wanting to be that for somebody else that is coming on into their first experience or two into the wilderness. It's just amazing to watch. We don't advertise for these trips, and we don't advertise for the leadership on this trip. It's very organic in how it comes about, in the type of personalities that are sitting around the campfire and talking. And it's always that kid that just says, hey, I would really, really love to keep going. When I'm finished in high school, what do I need to do? So it's them asking an adult, what is the process to do it? And I just always tell them, you got to poke the bear. I'm the bear. You got to poke me because if you become a leader in our program, it's your spot until you give it up. And I always tell them I'm going to love you no matter what. Like the text just went out recently, about the approaching summer and plans, and I always put in that text somewhere, I'm going to love you always, in all ways, no matter what you're doing this summer. And I feel so fortunate that the leaders that helped me on my first trip, you know, helped me transform into the person that I became. And then I had that opportunity to help others and I never in a million years thought that I would be the steward of the program, and those couple of leaders that were on my very first trip, if they knew then that I was going to be in charge of the program, they would have thought, oh no, we're in trouble.
Yeah, especially after your
Yeah.
first year, right?
But my daughter, more than anyone I know, backpacking has been the most positive thing in her life. Like she could give up everything except for backpacking. There's some type of healing that happens in her soul, especially, since the phone came into her life, that to be able to put that aside and be out there, she just becomes this incredibly strong human being that just passionately wants to know how you're doing today and how you're feeling today and what can I do for you today to make your day better? And that's what makes this program great. I don't make money doing this program. We don't pay the leaders that come on this program, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't know if it would be as fulfilling and empowering if we were doing it for money. I just, the two teachers that started the program this is the way they did it, and I hope to continue doing this program.
Oh, I hope so too.
But in that, definitely in that light, and now with Reese, she's teaching rock climbing, and she's a guide at her school,
wow.
taking trips to Grand Canyon and hiking, and it's just like, and she's like the person at her college. She's been in the program since she was a freshman. They don't typically have freshman guides, but because of her experiences, she's more experienced than her boss, so.
Wow. And she's up in Colorado, right?
She's in Flagstaff.
Flagstaff, that's what
yeah.
it was. Yes. That's why she would be doing Grand Canyon and everything closer there. Oh, it's beautiful there. So beautiful.
I have a daughter.
That's like a dream job. Man,
I have a daughter
she's already
in Colorado
living the dream.
too. She's not my real daughter. She's a former student. She went in 5th grade for the first time. Her family, she had never had a sleepover. Her family, every night of the trip, somebody was ready to drive up to come and get her in Mammoth because they knew that she wasn't going to be able to do it because she's never even made it a night away from home. And she made it, and she still goes. And she and Reese are really good friends to the point when we're doing family vacations, she comes with us even when Reese doesn't, So
wow.
And it's all through that shared experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember even with my daughter Quinn, who's the same age as Reese, how after their senior year, she planned a big backpacking trip. And they're like, why can't we do this again? And it's just so hard, right? Now to get permits for a large group. But they had such a blast. And at least, how many? 15 of them went?
They had a really big crew,
oh my gosh, a really big crew. But just even people that weren't close friends were close friends by the end because all kinds of people were going, and it was a great time.
There's something about sharing that experience, a week long, even if you weren't great friends to start or if you didn't even know each other, there's something that binds you together forever. And you could go back to school and you could pass each other in the hallway and you may not even say hello, but as soon as you make eye contact, you know you did something pretty darn special together that will never ever fade. Some of my best friends in life are people that I spent 9 days of summer with, middle school, high school, as a participant. But, during the
Hmm.
school year, our lives didn't, intersect.
Cross
Yeah,
paths,
but the
right?
moment we were at a meeting and preparing for our trip and then being on the trip, it was like we were Siamese twins, just everybody just so together. And it
Yeah, it's
doesn't
like
fade.
the veil falls, like these shields
Yes.
that we put up around ourselves and our ego, and
Mm-hmm.
like this is who I am and how I should be. But you go on these backpack trips, it's like you're all out
Yeah.
there, like,
Yeah.
and you're not showering much for a week
Nope.
either because
We
you
try to
jump in
swim
that
every
ice
day.
cold river. But yeah, it's just really getting down to the basics and just yeah, because you don't have those distractions to really be in so that you are in touch with who you really are and that's you're out there in the wild. What's the point? You're just going to be enjoying each other's company, having fun and showing your real
Yeah.
self, really, truly.
Yeah. You can't fake it that many days in a row. It's
No,
impossible.
no. So tell me, like, gosh, I mean, I know you've changed so many lives over the years, and it's just something they will never forget. And even my son doing it once, it's just something you don't forget that
Hmm.
stays with you. And what do you think are the biggest challenges with taking these groups out? Are there some I know for me, I mean, I'll give an example. I am planning a backpacking trip this summer. Want to start at Onion Campground, but I'm doing a highly competitive one going out of
Yeah.
Whitney. And it's like, you got to get up, by 7
Pacific
a.m.,
time. Yeah.
exactly 6 months to that
Yes.
date beforehand. You got to be on there and your hands are ready to click on the reserve,
Yep.
right? And I was lucky to get two spots,
Yeah.
So then you have to hop on again 2 weeks before the hike to try to get two more passes so our family can do it
Right.
together, crossing our fingers. But I think I understand that they're trying to limit people up in the mountains in the wilderness so that you feel that you are in the
Yeah.
wild and it's not crowded. But I do think there needs to be an exception for groups like yours, getting because most parents are not going to be taking their kids backpacking or
Yeah.
being able to provide this experience. Plus, it's more beneficial when the teens are going with other teens and a way that this could continue to grow because these are kids that do this year after year. It has such a great impact on their
Yeah.
life. So I don't know. I guess that's all that can really be said about it. Do you have any
The
thoughts about
it's
that?
becoming a
Yeah.
big challenge. The permitting side of it. Yesterday was our 6 month to the day. And
Ooh,
it
stressful
was
day, I bet.
very hectic morning. I was counting earlier in case something like this came up. In the 15 minutes that we were attempting to get permits yesterday, I had almost 60 texts from the 8 of us who were trying to obtain permits, because at 7 o'clock and 3 seconds, trailheads were already taken. I mean, it,
Hmm.
you know, the internet portion was, you know, getting overloaded and I got kicked out. And um, so we try to come at it with multiple people, multiple angles. Um, and we really can't start planning exactly where we're going to go till we get the trailheads that we're able to get. And I really feel that's what's going to put this program to rest, is not being able to do it the way we have been. And I understand that there's people out there, they may be going with a family, the four of them, and to see a group of 15 would be a little bit disappointing to see if you're at a lake. And we do our best to instill in the kids, the respect side of things, and they usually latch on really quickly, really easily. And one of the leaders will always go and talk to those people to, in a way, apologize in advance, if we're being a little bit noisy or obnoxious, and then to, offer whatever we can to them, whether it be a dessert or, and
Campfire.
joining us by the campfire to play in, the games that we play. We've got endless nights. You could go about 4 years on these trips and not get the same mystery, not get the same games, mind teaser games. And it's just a way to bring people together and enjoy. So I understand, you see a big group, but I would say that I would much rather have a group of 15 that are being taught how to care for the wilderness immaculately than to see four uneducated people going out there and potentially ruining a site because they not that they're intentionally doing it, hopefully, but if they don't know how to take care of it or dig their hole properly or go away from the trail enough, I think four people could have more damage than our group. And talking with, this is going to be my 47th summer coming up, and we have another
Wow.
director leader that has been going with us for about 43 years. So we've seen a lot of change.
Wow.
And we were talking after our hardship of getting permits yesterday. We shudder to think what the wilderness would be like. The Poway program has been going on since 1972, and Eddie instilled in every single person that he's ever introduced to the wilderness about picking up every sign of humanity that you see, even if it's the smallest little scrap of starburst wrapper. And there's a particular trail that we typically do 3 times a summer, so we're on this same trail 30 days every summer. And every summer, every trip, we pick up 2-3 gallon sized Ziploc bags full of trash that is not ours. So if we go from 72 to 2025 and the 6,000 or so people that have gone through this program, what would that place look like if there weren't those of us picking up all that trash? I mean, I don't know what it would be like. It would be interesting to see. I wouldn't want to see that, but it's heartbreaking to me to do some of these beautiful trails. And I was just there, this same spot, maybe 12 days ago, and there's a pile of, somebody's trash. Or we go up to Half Dome, and it's a game for us. Every kid has a Ziploc bag, and we pick up trash all the way up. And they feel so good about the fact that they just cleaned this trail. And then we spend at most an hour up on top. And then we come back down to go back to camp. And we pick up trash on the way back down. And their mind is just blown that people would intentionally go into the wilderness for a wilderness experience, but not think that their banana peel or their candy wrapper is going to affect somebody else. It's really sad. And that's what I would want to talk to the Forest Service about, that these type of programs could be doing a great amount of good and helping the Forest Service instead of trying to stamp us out. The national parks has a different feeling. They see what we do, and the national park is open arms every summer. They love to see our groups. They love to see our kids. They love seeing young people, finding their limits and beating it and making it. It's just weird what one little, mountain range has done to two organizations that are really kind of doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the permitting is really going to put us out.
Yeah, I
Unfortunately.
really do think, well, and here I am speaking to an educator with 30 years experience, but I'm sure you could say yourself how these backpacking experiences are could even become more of an important part of education. They are a critical part of education. I mean, I'm always on my soapbox about how we should be learning about nutrition from a very
Mm,
young age, how to take care of our bodies versus memorizing things outside of us and dates of the
right.
past. And we know nothing about ourselves. Well, same with nature. It's
Hmm.
the most important thing we have. And if we're not learning to be good stewards of nature, connecting with nature, I think these programs are essential, and they're essential to kids' mental health as well.
Yes.
That there should be an exception or some kind of special program
Yeah.
that could help weave these into the
Yeah.
parks. And because we also need to learn to come together as a community in nature and not feel like we're just isolated
Right.
beings. We're all connected.
Hmm.
And I think the more we can connect, and especially connect in nature, the more we can be tolerant of each other and differences and understanding. It's we got to look deeper there for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely agree.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So much here, and I want to say, too, what you've done with your program. You've It's like you said, no one makes any money, and you keep it affordable. It's at cost. It's the bus ride getting there and back.
Yes.
It's everyone buys their food, and everyone carries something. But then you have this, like, I've been there, like, you have this big shed that's full of backpacks and gear and camping stoves or whatever they need, right?
Everything. Yes.
Bear
Hmm.
canisters, to keep it affordable. Because if otherwise, teens have to look at some of these commercial operations for teen backpacking can be like 2 weeks and over
Holy.
$5,000, and in addition to having to fly somewhere,
Right. And provide your
whereas,
gear, your own gear.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, rent your gear. I mean, I think REI tends to, rent gear. And REI does have some training. They've let go of their backpacking trips. They weren't clear as to why. Sierra Club has more affordable backpacking, but not many teen options. And if
Yes.
you're selling that to all of Southern California, those 10 spots are going to go like
We
nothing.
s-
So I
we
don't,
sell out in a matter of minutes every year,
yeah,
and
right.
it breaks my heart every year to have kids on our waiting list, but I'm so limited with the amount of time, but more than anything, it's the availability of the permits. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like last year we had 13 graduating seniors that we could not take, and for their
13.
last trip, within our program, and we had so many sign up, returnees, that we opened up the registration portal at about 6 a.m. and by about 6:18 it was completely sold out. So returnees that signed up at 6:30, I mean, they were, way down the list, so, and that's why I do
Wow.
encourage what you're doing, taking your family, that's really the ultimate goal, that all of these kiddos will want to continue to backpack. And then I'm, I help so many families and kids do their own trips, um, so that they can, stay fulfilled and do it. Like I, I don't know how many kids have done the whole John Muir Trail just because they were inspired by doing our trips, and then doing the whole Pacific Crest Trail, and then the Appalachian Trail, and
Wow.
then the Tierra del Fuego in Spain. There's, dozens of kids that have walked all over this planet, because we took them on a little trip, you know,
Because you planted
one
those
summer, and
seeds. Yeah.
gave them some love and some encouragement, and gave them that opportunity to find a piece of their true self, really. And that's what
Yeah.
society's missing.
Absolutely. It's missing. I really think that this is what teens are asking for. They just don't know it.
Yes.
When once they know what's there and they experience it, they're like, this is what's missing.
Yeah.
I heard that from my kids. Like, not kidding. This is what's
Yeah.
missing. Like an opportunity to like let go of everything, to just be out in nature, tune into myself. It's an essential part of their education. Like, and to see the impact you're having on just, the Poway community.
Mhm.
Like, I can't imagine if this was everywhere across the US, having these local, in their areas, finding backpacking trips in local areas. And once kids have this experience, they're most often hooked. And even if physically there's different levels of fitness,
Mhm.
let's say, there's different things that these kids can do to get
Yeah.
started for
Yeah.
sure. And I'm sure you've
Oh
seen that,
yeah.
right? That concern has come up.
Yes.
And even parents getting kids started, even car camping, right? Getting them to areas where they can't use their cell phones, or let's take a break from our cell phones this
Yeah.
weekend, including parents, so
Absolutely.
even if you can practice it as a family, car camping, we were happy that we did 2 summers in a row of RV trips. We rented an RV and just visited as many national parks as we
Right.
could. And so often there's no cell phone coverage, and it's great. And there were definitely some fights going on in the tight space in an RV with
I
your
feel you
parents,
only
but
argue with the
we
people you
always
care
look.
about, so.
Yes. So, but just those are the times we look back at, like, that are just, and they've been to places like Disneyland or
Right.
Disney Cruise and all these, exciting places, but it always comes back to the backpacking, we've done Tour de Mont Blanc now. And oh my gosh, that was a huge, amazing experience to be, 10 days, just getting out in nature. Really loved it in the mountains. So
Yeah, my kids they've never been home for Thanksgiving. We're always camping. We're always outside. They've never been home for New Year's. Christmas Day, we pack up the RV and we go to Joshua Tree and rock climb for a
wow.
week. Christmas Day to New Year's Day, and the cell phones don't work out there either. Um, and now, Reese, the youngest, is 22, and they're still coming. You know, uh,
Hmm.
I think they need it, and so they make it happen, within their lives, through the experiences that we've shared. And I'm breaking my rule being here with you today. No Tech Tuesdays, so no, I'm happy to be here. There's times, with homework and stuff as the kids were growing up,
Yes.
we can bend, um, but I think they enjoyed it too, as much as they may have had their heels dug in when they were younger. But yeah, we just keep the TVs off, keep the phones off, and spend our time together on Tuesday. When I try to get my students to do it, I don't know if they all do, but
Bring out the board
That's
games,
it.
right?
Yeah, the puzzles. Kids don't know how to do puzzles
Cards.
anymore. I have this same set of puzzles that are 30 years old. 30 years ago, kids, second graders, third graders would put these puzzles together in under 2 minutes. These same puzzles I still use them. And these
Mhm.
current kids, it takes them more than 10 minutes. Same puzzle, 48 pieces. They
Just,
just,
what is this?
they
Yeah.
don't experience. Oh, I do puzzles. Yeah, on a computer. I don't know how it works.
It's
I've
not the
never
same.
tried. I don't ever plan on trying, but that's a big disparity, 5 times as long
Hmm.
to do a 48-piece puzzle. Same age kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we got to wrap up soon, but we had a conversation before this and you were talking about how you were talking about how kids are different nowadays in your classroom, just not only doing puzzles, but even in their attention span,
Yeah.
right? Just, and needing more of that emotional support that they're just not getting.
Yeah, I feel as a
It's,
teacher, we are more than just educators of knowledge. We're doing more of the things that would typically, at least from my youth, that my parents would take care of, and they just don't seem to be getting it at home. So there are times where I feel more like a police officer than a teacher at times. Um, and my hope, I would hope that they would all say that. I think each and every one of them knows that I love them, and I tell them that I love you enough not to let you get away with whatever it is you may have done that's not appropriate for the group. And I think they need that. They need to hear that. At the beginning of the year when I tell them, you are in trouble because you are now part of my family for life. Just because I'm scheduled to be your teacher for the next 180 school days, I don't stop there. As long as I'm breathing, I'm here for you. You can find I'm not allowed to give my phone number out to students or families anymore, per the district. Uh, but you can find my phone number and you can call me. And for the first 27 years of my career, I gave every kid, every parent my phone number, and I've never had a cranked phone call, not once. I did one time. There was three. I think they were former third graders. They were in like eighth or ninth grade. They called and they were giggling, but it
middle
told
school.
me on
Yeah.
the phone that who it was, so I knew who it was. So I just started talking. Then they started talking. These kids know where I live, and they are welcome to come to my
Yeah.
home. And it's not uncommon for my wife and I to have a Friday night, and we've got 6, 8 teenagers that are just here to hang out, and
Yeah.
we feel so blessed that this is where they're choosing to be. They could be at a party doing bad things, but here they are hanging out with us. And my wife, she'll start, making cookies or whatever, and it's often like it's getting on 11 o'clock and it's like, did you guys
Yeah. Cause
take
you
care of
remind,
care of whatever you needed, while you came? And they're like, yeah, we just came to hang out, no judgment, nothing. And I love, I
yeah.
love that. And that's really what I put into my life as a teacher, as a backpacking leader. I mean it. I'm here forever,
Yeah. From the heart.
you know,
Yeah.
Eddie, just real quickly, he was my teacher. He was my, backpacking guy, but he flew me to college. He co-signed for my first house. You know, I don't think there's programs out there where someone would do that for a kid, And I'm so thankful and blessed that he saw something in me before I saw something in me. Um, and I hope that if I can do that for one kid, all these years of doing this program, will make it worthwhile for me, you know?
I think you've done a lot for kids already.
That's what we do.
6,000 plus. Yes.
It's amazing that it's
Oh my
growing that
gosh.
much.
It's
And I could be
amazing.
anywhere in
I
the
love
world.
it.
I've been, to Europe. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to Disneyland, Home Depot. And these former students or backpackers, hey, Scott, or Mr. Rinehart. It's such a
Oh,
joy. I feel so lucky.
yeah. You're an inspiration. That's
Thank
for
you.
sure. Absolutely. Love it. Scott, any final words? I think you
Wow.
have had quite a lot to share that I just want to, say thank you for sharing so much of what we all need to hear, what families need to hear, parents and kids, and just that awareness that we need that place that we can go to and be ourselves and be connected with who we are. And nature is the best place for it. And it can happen every week, every day, at home, out and about, but definitely love backpacking the most.
Go hug a tree,
Yeah,
I don't
go
want
hug
to
a
sound
tree.
like
There
a
we
tree
go.
hugger, but there's some type of energy that you can get. And I think Quinn was part of that group where they sat around and they hugged a tree, I don't know for how long, but they all found
She
the
shared
tree,
that.
and just like,
Yeah, she said that they hugged a tree so long that some of them were in tears when they let go.
that's
I was like,
it right there.
yeah. I'll admit, my kids will think, whenever I do hikes around Poway, there's trees I have to touch. There's water I put in certain places. It's like this spiritual connection to nature that it's just there. There's hawks. In fact, before our interview, there was the mother hawk sitting on the tip of my tree out in the front yard. It's like, oh, it's time to, talk with Scott. So
I love it. Well, thank
I
you for
love the
thinking of
signs in
me
nature. Yes.
doing
Yes.
this.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, again, thank you for sharing your heart, Scott. And I just going to continue to really do what I can. I really, part of my mission is like the call to action. Really, what can we do for our kids today to allow them to have better lives and have more happiness, less anxiety, and feel more connected with who they are? So
Awesome.
thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.
Wow, what a great and inspiring conversation to have with Scott today. I love his life. I'd love to be a backpacker all summer long, every summer. But how amazing the joy he finds in his life, both as a teacher and leading teens on these backpacking trips. And no matter where he's at, he's helping kids really find themselves. And what better way to do it in nature when there's no distractions around you, no phones, giving kids that time that they need to really feel who they are and be who they are around others. I'm wondering how we can even bring that home on a weekly basis. Can we take one night off instead of turning to the TV or social media or our computers and playing a board game, playing a card game, or taking those camping trips, keeping it simple, even just going for a drive 2 hours away and camping on a campground, just to be away from all of those distractions at home. So there are things that we can do to make a difference, to really have that time for our kids, the space that our kids need. So I'd love to hear your comments. Maybe a lot of you are already doing that and would like to share other ideas or ways that you provide downtime for your kids or your families. Just head on over to my show notes under YouTube. There you can leave comments, you can like, you can subscribe, really to keep this conversation going. And I'd love to see you there. Until next time, be well.